Hey, what's up? This is Steve Cardenas, aka Rocky the Red Power Ranger,
and Jeff Barrazzo, Trent Fernandez Mercer from Battle Thunder,
and you are watching Team Venom Media.
It's morphin' time.
Dennis Oliver, Thorburn the Third, Mr. Valentine, Rory Bailey, Paul Baker.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of Team Venom's Power Ranger podcast. I'm your host, Rory Bailey, joined by Callista Valentine, our newcomer guy, Jessop-Braithwaite, and a special guest in Ben Robbins. So, firstly, how the devil are the three of you?
Sweet, man. All good. Sweetness and light.
Very good.
Thank you. Spent a couple of days away from home, and I'm glad to be back in my own bed for a change.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I was going to say to begin with, actually, thank you for rescheduling with me. For the last 2 weeks, I had a wisdom tooth gum infection, and I couldn't even speak or do anything. So I kept postponing this and pushing it back.
Yeah.
No, that's fine, man. Well, what we'll do on this, for the purpose of this episode, the main thing we wanted to chat to you about was the event you've got in, I think it's the 7th of November, isn't it, in London? And
yeah, so...
Well, the floor is yours. Tell us about your event.
Oh, yeah, well, so a good friend of mine who runs BEW Events has got the Red Power Ranger, Steve Cardenas. He's doing an evening with him on the 7th of November at the Tunnel 267 in Wimbledon. I've got it written down here in London on the Broadway. And it's basically going to be an afternoon with him. It starts at 3 p.m. There's going to be a showing of the original film, obviously meet and greets and photo opportunities. And it's just going to be like just an afternoon, or sort of into the evening, just all Power Rangers, and just anyone who loves Power Rangers come down and just come meet a real life Power Ranger as well, and obviously get to speak to one and hear his stories, and obviously the stories of being on set and the films and the show. It's going to be an awesome night.
Ah, cool.
Nirvana for Power Rangers fans then.
Well, in terms of pricing and such as well, something that I actually quite appreciate about your event is whenever I've looked at any Comic Cons to go and meet any Rangers, you're normally talking about 50 quid for a meet and greet, as well as like 20, 30 quid to get in. And I think your ticket, so is it £15 entry?
I believe it's children's £5 and adults is £10 entry. That doesn't
I overpriced it and it still sounded good. But, yeah, no, the pricing wise, it's like spot on, because I know lots of people that travel to all these conventions purely for Rangers. So firstly, obviously, thank you guys for doing such a cost effective event, really, to go and meet who's essentially going to be a lot of people's childhood hero, and also to watch the event. So what got you into Power Rangers?
Oh man, I think it was my dad, man. He used to wake me up on a Saturday morning when Mr. Motivator was presenting on TV. And back then it was like, there's this new show and you've got to give it a watch and see what you think. And literally the first episode, and that was it, was sold. Like any kid, it was just absolutely, obviously it was real life action. It wasn't animated in that. There was real explosions and real, in my eyes, real robots fighting on the screen. It was so real to me.
Yeah, fair enough. And I mean, me and Callie covered ours on our first episode about what got us into it. But because Guy's also new, so I want to throw that question at Guy. So, Guy, what got you into Power Rangers as well, dude?
Ah, well, see, I was actually 16 when it first aired. So I was, I'm a bit of an old fart, let's face it. But I just saw an advert for it and I thought, that looks interesting. I'll sort of check that out, and, watched it the Saturday morning. The same as Ben, was just like, yeah, this is cool. This sort of reminded me of an old show back in the 80s called Starfleet. Do any of you remember that? It was also called X-Bomber in Japan.
I've never seen it.
Oh,
sorry.
You're missing a trick. Check it out.
Will do.
It reminded me of that. So I'm like, I'll have a look at this. And of course, martial arts, monsters, robots, perfect, that'll do me. And of course, there's me dad taking the mick out of me, saying, "Oh, what are you watching that crap for? It's for kids." Oh, shut up. A good story's a good story.
Indeed. Well, Callie, anything you'd like to ask?
I'm a
Like
little
a
bit
guy or
stuck
Ben,
at
we've
the
got
moment. Sorry, I was messing with my sound settings because I recently got a new microphone, and I was like, hold on, it's going to pick things up. So I just had to quickly adjust my sound settings. So I lost in thought there. What's it like kind of putting one of these kind of events together? What happens behind the scenes, the kind of things that the fans wouldn't really see?
Well, obviously, I work on the British wrestling scene. I'm a referee as well. So,
Okay.
Oh, cool.
and one of the first sort of events company I was involved with was Kayfabe Events. We did the tour with Austin Aries, and we did the big Bret Hart tour as well and stuff. And there's an awful lot that goes on behind the scenes within. Obviously, you've got to find the right guest. So, like Steve Cardenas, you've got to throw a load of dates at him. But you've got to find a venue and throw the dates at them, and you've got to juggle that about.
Yeah.
And then you've obviously got to think about transport. You know, is it accessible for fans to get to? I mean, most of it's all a train journey, so anyone who's in London can just jump on the tube and you're straight there, sort of thing. But yeah, and even just trying to add little bits like we're doing. Obviously, when we watch the film, Steve's going to sit there and watch it with us, so he's not going off backstage. He's going to come out with the fans, and everyone can watch the original film with him and things.
Yeah,
and it's
that's cool.
So it's just obviously trying to find little extras to give people on the day and that, and yeah, it's just obviously just finding the right guests, the venues, and obviously trying to think of it, especially at this day and age at the minute of COVID, the right ticket prices and money, because money's so important for people at the minute. So you don't want to be chucking these high figures out there because people are just going to turn it down straight away. You want something just nice and affordable and something enjoyable where people can just come and get lost in it, really, and just forget about what's going on outside the venue and have some fun and obviously make some new friends, meet some new people, and just try creating like a little community on the day, sort of thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's always good kind of meeting like-minded people, you know, fellow fans, people who, like yourself, who run the events and that kind of thing, and obviously meeting the stars. So yeah, I mean, that kind of covers my question nicely, so thank you.
That's all right.
I've just got to quickly ask you about one of the things you mentioned. You know, you mentioned the Bret Hart tour. Was that the one from about 7 or 8 years ago, by any chance?
This one's probably about 5 years ago. We were the Kayfabe Events one. We did like the Brighton, and we did London, Cardiff, and Manchester.
Okay, fair enough. I ended up as a guest for the Derby one, which I can't remember the year. So that was somewhere between 5 and 8 years ago. so it could be anywhere around there. But yeah, it was just a nice small world coincidence there. If it was the same one, and I ended up accidentally crossing paths with you and never actually realizing. So yeah. Guy, have you got anything you'd like to ask Ben?
Well, I was going to ask you actually, Rory. How do you keep blagging your way onto the British wrestling scene?
I did loads, man, ages ago. But about 8 or 9 years ago, I was wrestling in like shows in front of like 20, 30 people.
Oh, cool.
And then got a decent YouTube following and got a tryout for TNA. As a result, got signed to TNA for 1 day, and it was both like one of the best experiences in wrestling and the worst at the same time. It was televised as well, and pardon my French, it was fucking awful. But it was for one of these British boot camp things that they were doing, and
oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so I got on that, and they messed me around something fierce. So I was supposed to be getting there for 12 o'clock, and they told me the night before, "Oh, we need you at 9 now," and it was in Manchester. I was in Weston-super-Mare at the bottom end of the country when they messaged me. I was like, right, I've got to go and jump on a train in 20 minutes now because that's the last one that can get me there in time. I was on holiday with my family, and we were literally going to be coming back first thing the next day, and I would have gone there. So I ended up got back into Burton around about 1 o'clock in the morning by the time I got there, because it was awkward trains. Went to sleep, got up at 5 to get onto another train to get me to Stoke to then go on to Manchester. And I got there about 8 o'clock in the morning, and they said, "Oh, we're actually running behind. We won't need to see you till 1 o'clock." so I was there at 8, and I 5 hours in a dressing room with a bunch of my own personal heroes. So I was like, this ain't good. So they said, yeah, we're putting 4 people through, and I was in a dressing room with Chris Travis, who was awesome. Mark Andrews, Mark Andrews is still in WWE at the moment. El Ligero, who ended up in WWE as well. Rampage Brown, who's now in WWE. Who else was there? Was the Sam Smitten Downs, the babyface Pitbull, and a bunch of other peoples, and also Rockstar Spud was there because he'd won the first one, and this was the second British boot camp, so he was there as well, and a load of other people. And it was like, well, there's 4 people going through, and I can see at least 6 people in front of me that should definitely be going through. And the very first thing I saw at 9 o'clock, the first person to come out and have their audition and come back to the locker room was Jack Gallagher. And he came through, and he was in tears and stuff. And he was in tears because Samoa Joe had essentially said, yeah, you haven't got the look, you haven't got the build. No one's ever going to buy you as a professional wrestler. And he ended up signed to WWE something like 4 years before Joe did. So you're like, well, it's one of them. And it was really weird because I was seeing all these people that were way more talented than I was, and by the time I got in, we already knew who was going through, and it was just a formality. So I went in, stood in the ring, no one looked up from the desk. It was like Al Snow, Gail Kim, and Samoa Joe, and they were all just chatting amongst themselves. And I think I stood in the ring for about 10 minutes before any of them spoke to me. And and then it was I'd already done a promo at like 8 o'clock in the morning to Rockstar Spud, and he thought it was great. And they were asking me to cut some promos, and I think I had to cut a fair chunk of them. And they were just like, oh yeah, there was another one, but they weren't giving me any direction. So instead of saying, right, you've got a match with such and such sellers on it, it was literally cut as a promo. And when I watched the other people's auditions that went through, they all got direction and everything. It was just clearly they weren't bothered. At the point I got there, and like. All that made it to air was about 2 minutes. And those 2 minutes are literally like promo starting strong, different promo because they'd spliced them in because it cuts to like there. And it's like the end of a different promo where I've hit the point where I've just ran out of shit to talk about. And you can see because I'm there, and there's a point where my fucking eyes roll back where I'm like, fuck, what am I talking about? I'm waffling. You can actually, like the first time I watched it back, I had it on mute because I was like, I don't particularly want to listen to this, but it's still cool that I was there. And I was like, yeah, that's the point where I've lost my plot. And and then that was that. And but
there's that TNA organization.
Yeah, but the good thing was, I befriended a fair few wrestlers because I was, in a locker room with them for 5 hours, and that sort of helped kick off Team Venom in general. The Team Venom Media side of things, and a couple of weeks before, I'd also done my first interview, which was with MVP, and that was in person, and we'd had a few whiskeys and got on fine as well then, which was pretty awesome. And TNA, which was great, their press guy became a good friend of mine leading up to that, and he was laughing his head off at what had happened to me. He's like, I don't know what went wrong with you. And he's ended up being like a really good friend of mine. So whenever there's any TNA guys over, I get a phone call and say, oh, do you want to come down to such and such and film an interview and do all this sort of things? And over the years, I've ended up doing like over 100 interviews. And so I was doing that instead of wrestling because the wrestling thing I'd already got to, like, at that point, TNA was the number 2 company. Now it's like AEW that's in that spot and quickly closing in with WWE. So I sort of went down that route of just doing the interviews and stuff like this that we're doing because it's more enjoyable. And the experience,
you're not throwing yourself on the ground.
Well, although I still
with a bonus.
Exactly, yeah. And, I still dip my toe in every now and again, and I've had it a few years ago where I was chatting to Al Snow backstage at a show that my friend Luke was running at Slam Wrestling. It was all gold, and it was just as Al Snow was. Yeah, they're really good company and stuff. And just at that point, Al was setting up his Al Snow academies across the UK. So I was doing this big promotional interview with him. And at the end of it, after we'd finished recording, he was going, oh, yeah, Luke says you used to train down here quite a bit and everything. And obviously, I'm sure I've met you before. I didn't say, yeah, you guys like shat on me at TNA or anything like that.
Yeah.
Didn't want to bring that up. And we ended up just, he basically said, yeah, come and train for us, come and do some shows with us. And I ended up doing a few shows there. And then I think I did a show 2 or 3 weeks later after that. And then a big show in front of around about 2,000 people later on that year. But at the same time was mainly focusing on like the podcast and stuff like that too. And from there, at the same sort of time as well, I befriended Scotty Too Hotty and Grandmaster Sexo, which was weird. Weird that we just ended up as pals, like, and that's also one of the things that also helped spark, the love for Power Rangers, because I was in a bar in Birmingham, walkabout, and I was with Scotty Too Hotty, Grandmaster Sexo, a guy called Nigel who got them over, British wrestler Robbie X, and there's another British wrestler that was there, but I was very drunk and I couldn't remember his name or his face. So, it was one of them. And we were sat in the VIP thing, and walkabout put us all in VIP. All our drinks were free. And they put them in there because Too Cool were going to be taking photos with people, and you could go in, pay them like 20 quid, and they got a big photo booth set up. Friggin' Steve Cardenas walks in. And so this circles back to like Ben's thing.
Yeah.
So Steve Cardenas walks in, and I'm sat there, and I'm sure I've just seen Rocky the Red Ranger walk through the door. And so I ended up like, my other friend who was also called Ben, he was there with me, and we ended up searching the pub trying to find Rocky. We found him in the men's toilets. It's a bit seedy, but I've got a toilet selfie. So we found him, was like chatting to us, like, what are you doing here? He's like, oh, I'm a wrestling fan, so I saw that Too Cool here, so I came to get a photo. He's like, well, we're drinking in VIP, come along. And so he came over, he goes, oh, I was just shouting my friends, and it was Johnny Young Bosch, who was Adam, the Black Ranger, Paul Scryer, and Jason Narby, which is Bulk and Skull.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
So my night out went from like, it's already pretty frigging epic because, like pinching myself because I'm having a few beers with Too Cool anyway, to then half the cash to Power Rangers is here. Like, what the hell's going on? And it was where they'd done some convention.
10.10.
Yeah.
On the serialometer.
And then Steve was dead sound, and I went and saw him again in London a few months later because he told me that he was going there. I think I'm 90% sure he helped me get pressed for that, but I'm not, because we'd swapped email addresses. I told him I was going for it, and he said he was going to do an interview with me when I was down there. And I mentioned that to Showmasters, and the next day I got press accreditation with Showmasters, which I've still got to the day. And went down there and interviewed Steve Cardenas, Jason Faunt, which was Wes from Time Force, Erin Cahill, which was Jen from Time Force, Cameron J. Both, that was Orion from Super Mega Force, Peter Marie Rickson, that was Alpha 5 in the movie, and got to meet JDF because he was there as well. So I had just like a really awesome time, and yeah, it was mental. And I've just realised I've waffled for about 15 minutes on one answer to Guy asking me a question that wasn't even relevant to the podcast. so sorry, guys.
No, I'm sorry, it's my fault.
So
The ultimate sidebar.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
Yeah, sorry, Ben.
No, that's fine. It's interesting to hear it all. Like, it's cool to hear people's backstories.
Yeah, it's just weird how things pan out, and like obviously Slam became ASWA earlier this year. I was doing my own comic book series, which I have to hand. It's called The Suit. Obviously, there's a wad of them now, and I got so far into that to the point where I was like, right, I've done everything I wanted to do this year for my comic. So there's no interviews going because the events haven't started being announced properly yet. And what do I want to do? So I posted that I wanted to get back into wrestling. And within half an hour, I had a message from Luke, and he was going, if you want to get back into wrestling, just come down. And 2 weeks later, I was getting thrown around by a bunch of their biggest and scariest people. And then I've gone down there every month ever since. So once a month, I'm doing something with the former Slam, because now it's Al Snow's Wrestling Academy UK. So yeah, it's just bizarre how things happen. So anyway, that was my story. Ben, how did you get into all that sort of stuff?
Well, that's the thing. Like for years, I was going to be this big famous wrestler. I was going to be in the WWE. I was going to take on The Rock at WrestleMania. I was going to do the whole thing, but it doesn't work out like that, does it? At all. So,
as my story just showed as well.
I did so many training seminars. I went to the Al Snow Academy as well.
Oh, okay.
And I just, the whole pain and what you put your body through, and just, I'd fractured vertebrae in my neck before and things. And so I was like waking up with the worst neck. And it was just one of those things where I just had to sort of give up the dream of becoming a wrestler. And I just thought, right, I want to move into other areas. So that's why I got involved with kayfabe events. So I could do like the Q&A tours. And I mean, on the Brett tour, we would sleep about 2 hours a night, because then you'd be back out on the road, the hotel runs, so you'd do the shows, and it was so full on. And I met a really good friend there, Billy, and he's a referee. And I just said to him, I'd love to do something else, like the referee inside or ring announce inside. He had a show on in Horsham where I live, and it was outside in the park, boiling hot day, and he threw me in the ring purely because he just didn't want to referee all day. And he just said, we'll see what you can do, sort of thing. I must have done about 12 matches that day, just throughout the day, with him going back and forth. And I just wish I'd just looked at refereeing before and just gone to that side of wrestling, and just not wasted so much time trying to become a wrestler, and just been beneficial to other shows and more shows, because I could have done the refereeing side. And, and it's just, obviously now, since I've been refereeing 3 years, I do shows all over the UK, and it's just, refereeing is just the best. Like it's so much better. I'm so much happier doing the refereeing than wrestling. It's brilliant.
It's the best seat in the house.
Oh, it's so much fun, especially you've been in the match with people and you've worked the match with them and relaying the messages and the timekeeping. And I did the new CXW show in Essex the other weekend.
Oh, nice.
And I had quite a few spots there. And one spot I got to kick the guy out who's obviously the heels were cheating and his manager was cheating outside, and I threw him out the arena, sort of thing, and everyone cheering. It was like I got that real big pop from it, and it's just little things like that. And it's just like, you sort of did your job for the night. But refereeing, I just wish I'd done it sooner when I was younger, because I probably could have been in much better positions, and God knows where I could have been and done. But obviously now I've sort of got it, and it's just like, right, I've got to keep this going. I've got to make sure I keep my face out there and keep on the shows. And it's been brilliant. But obviously, just the wrestling side, my body couldn't take it. Mentally, I couldn't take it. And you've just got to get to that point where you think, I'm going to put that to one side now. I've jumped in a few squash matches, like they've had a few gauntlet matches or battle royals, and I've come in my mask, sort of thing. And literally, I'm in there 20 seconds, they throw me out, and I'm done. Like, just to get that little help, get the heels over or whoever. But I can't take bumps anymore. Like, I could take a ref bump, but it's good fun.
Well, that's going to be ref bump's got to be a lot different than an actual bump.
Well, like I took a ref bump the other week at a show, and Mad Dog, he said he's just going to steam into me full pelt and shoulder tackle me, and he hit me so hard. Like, I didn't have time I couldn't even sell the bump, because I flew backwards on my heels and just fell back against the bottom rope, and like it bounced forward onto my face, and it looked even better. It made me look like a real weak little referee who got hit by one of the biggest wrestlers of the night. And it works so well. But I just said to him, just hit me, because you're gonna have to bump me. But he just absolutely, he come off them ropes, and it was just bang, freight train me, and I was gone. Then I had to sort of roll out the ring and play dead, and then you got like little kids come up to you, because we sell inflatable hammers for the kids to hit the bad guys, and they bashing me, like trying to wake me up, sort of thing. You got to lay there with your face covered, like try not to laugh, sort of thing. It's so much fun.
Upcoming Power Rangers event you've got in London.
Yeah.
Is it the first Power Rangers one you've done, by any chance?
I've worked with Steve Cardenas before. He was at a comic book shop, and my friend ran it, and I jumped in. I was like, could I do a little talk with you for my YouTube channel for 10 minutes? So I got to do that. Was like my first little experience talking with a Power Ranger. But it literally, I knew I was going to do it I think a matter of days before, so I had to sort of throw some questions together and do a load of research. And obviously well, I sort of just started, so I was really nervous on camera as well, and that, and it come out okay. But I'm getting better now. I've been doing it over a year, sort of thing. But that was my first real talk with a Power Ranger, and obviously now we're having Steve back in London. We got another guy doing the interview part on stage, but I'm going to get to do the Q&A, so I'm going to be running around in the audience with the microphone, and I'll do that part of the show. So that'd be more fun, because I like to do the interaction parts with the audience as well as the obviously the guests.
I'm very much like that as well. If it's a big success and you do another one, who would be your ideal guest to get, other than obviously Steve himself?
I mean, I'd love to imagine an evening with Bulk and Skull on stage together.
That'd be cool.
I would love
genius.
that.
I think
love that.
the comedy they could do on stage, and I think they would just heckle each other, and they heckle the crowd. I think I've seen them at a couple of conventions, and they're just so friendly and happy and bubbly, and they're happy to take people's phones off you and do shout outs and call people's mums up and all sorts. I think they'd be awesome guests as well.
I think Rory, we definitely need to do an episode just focused on Bulk and Skull.
Probably, yeah. But
yeah.
but if they're watching this through some small chance, then we definitely want them on this to talk about
we would love to have both of them as guests. It would be amazing.
But like you were just saying, Ben, I've been to conventions before, and I've seen the pair of them stood there. And there was one where we had press for it, and we didn't manage to interview them because the queues for them were just constantly long, because they were having so much fun with everybody, and they were acting like the characters and stuff. They were just like at the front of the I think they weren't behind the desk either. They were in front of it with everybody, and just really nice guys. And I spoke to Paul Scryer at the time, and he basically went, he said, oh yeah, I'd love to do an interview with you, but obviously there's got to be no queue, which is expected anyway at conventions. I was just asked, because I think I'd asked him if there was any particular time that worked for him or something like that, and we never got around to doing it. And then random night out that he was on, and this is again, Paul, if you're watching this, you said to me that you would go do me an interview. We want it.
Yeah, definitely.
So cashing in that check.
But yeah, no, they were absolutely wonderful. The way they were with the fans and such, completely agree. They'd be amazing to have at one of those events.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I remember is because this was at LFCC when they were there, and everyone had Bulk and Skull ringtones that day. Like everyone's phones were going off, and you could tell who they're going to go meet. But it was brilliant, because you could just hear people's phones all day. It was just their little gimmicky tune playing, and it made it even better, because every time they heard someone's phone go off, they were shouting over to them like, "We love your ringtone!" Like it was brilliant.
I think Jason and David Frank would be the ultimate.
Oh yes, definitely.
I think that would just be bedlam.
I'd probably be too shy to speak though if we had him on the show.
I met him in London at Comic-Con once, and I was so drunk when I met him. Like I met an old friend there, and we just got on it all day, and then he happened to be walking through the crowd, and I just went up to him. I just looked like a right mess with my pint of beer and my autographs. I was like, "Can I just get a selfie, please?" And he was like, "Yeah, of course." And he was all over it, and he was so nice. Like his security were like frowning at me, like, "Who's this monster?" sort of thing, like harassing me. And it's just me, like my arm around him, like, ah. Yeah, it was brilliant. But he was lovely. He stood there for about 10 minutes talking to us. He was happy to chat and just mingle around with people. He was really nice.
Yeah.
Ben, you got to get him.
Yeah, it'd be the next
one. We're trying. We're trying.
Yeah. Well, we'll wrap this up, because I've just noticed we've actually hit the half-hour mark. We aim to get these out for around about 30-35 minutes and such. So thank you very much for joining us, Van. And obviously, welcome to Guy for joining the team. Bit of context.
Congratulations, Guy.
Yeah. And a bit of context for viewers and listeners. Myself and Callie, know Guy from years back. So just one of those things where we're just, get involved. It'll be great. So that's nice to have you on board. And Ben, it was awesome.
Thanks, man.
You guys come down to the event?
I genuinely can't make it.
I will try. I'm not making any promises. I
Okay.
will
Yeah.
try.
It's the,
Yeah, same for me.
I'm a single dad, so I have to get my son back to his mother's for 5 o'clock on Sundays every week, and that's the thing of just I've got to get him for 5 o'clock, and I'm about 4 hours away from London. So yeah, unfortunately, as much as I'd absolutely love to, I genuinely just can't logistically make it. It's his birthday
No, that's cool, man.
I can't even say.
Before you go, Ben, just throw out the details again so everyone knows where and
Yeah.
when.
Yes.
Cool. I wrote it all down, so I definitely got it in front of me. It's the 7th of November this year, and it's a Sunday. The doors open at 3 p.m. and it's at Tunnels 267 in Wimbledon on the Broadway. The postcode is SW1915D. And adult tickets are £10, children's are £5. And we're gonna obviously we have a viewing of the original movie with Steve. He's gonna come and sit with the audience, and we can all watch it together. There's going to be added things throughout the night as well, which I'm not going to talk about just yet. But there will be an interview on stage with him, and then there will be a fan Q&A, and there will be meet and greet, so you can pay to get an autograph and a picture with him. I've seen Steve at conventions, and he's like, the last couple of conventions I've seen him working, he's not one of these where it's social distance. He takes his mask off, so do the friends, and they get a nice proper picture together, and he's just so friendly and nice. He normally brings his partner down, and she's really good with like the kids and helping with the meet and greet. And so they're a really cool team to have in, and it's just gonna be a really good night. And we're doing it early as well because it's a Sunday and times and travels and trains, so it's not going to finish like stupidly late or anything. But so it'd be just a really good night. It's obviously it's BEW Events. It's one of their first sort of like events they're doing kind of like this, because I know they're looking to do more events as well. And obviously I'm getting to feature on the night as well, and we got it's just going to be an awesome night, and I can't wait. And hopefully I won't be too nervous and mess up my Q&A.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, and gutted I can't go, but you're more than welcome on whenever you like to come on beforehand and chat about it, or even after to say how it went and that sort of thing. So you'd be more than welcome to join us.
I'd love to come back and come talk more Power Rangers with you guys and talk more wrestling. Like, I'll jump on any time. Like, just give me a shout and I'll be happy to.
Cool, man.